The simulation chamber hummed with artificial life as Maya stepped onto the verdant terrain of Training World Epsilon 7. Her chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the dual suns, sensory organs fully extended to absorb every detail of her surroundings. As a Crix reconnaissance specialist, she had trained for this moment her entire adult life, the final evaluation that would determine her placement in the galactic peacekeeping forces. Beside her materialized the holographic form of Instructor Velshara, a towering Metherian whose crystalline body refracted light into prismatic cascades. "Cadet Maya," the instructor's voice resonated through quantum frequencies, "your objective is straightforward. Survive 72 hours in this wilderness environment while evading a pursuit team. Blend with nature. Become invisible. This is the essence of reconnaissance." Maya's mandibles clicked in acknowledgement. She had studied the doctrine extensively. The Crix had evolved on forest worlds, their natural camouflage legendary among the galaxy's militaries. Her species could modulate their exoskeleton's chromatophores to match any environment within seconds. "Your pursuit team," Velshara continued, "consists of a human operator and his companion." Maya's sensory stalks twitched. Human. She had read about them, the newest species admitted to the galactic community, originating from a death world they called Earth. Primitive technology, short lifespans, no natural adaptations for camouflage or enhanced senses. This would be easier than anticipated. "You may begin," Velshara announced before dissolving into pixels. Maya immediately activated her camouflage, her carapace shifting through browns and greens to match the forest floor. She moved with practiced silence toward the dense underbrush, already planning her strategy. "Stay mobile, leave no traces, use the terrain." Standard doctrine. 3 kilometers away, William Chen adjusted the brim of his worn baseball cap and scratched behind the ears of his companion, a German shepherd named Scout. The dog's tail wagged once before settling into alert stillness. "All right, girl," William murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "We've got a runner, Crix, probably thinking she's invisible already." He knelt, pressing his palm against the moss-covered ground, feeling the slight depression where something heavy had recently stood. His fingers traced the disturbed pattern. Heading northeast, confident, "That'll change." Scout's nose worked the air, but William didn't rely on scent alone. His grandfather had taught him to hunt white-tailed deer in the Appalachian Mountains before the contact, before humanity learned they weren't alone. Those lessons, reading broken twigs, displaced stones, the way birds fell silent, no alien academy taught such things. He pulled a small device from his pack, setting it carefully at the base of a tree. Not technology by galactic standards, just a simple motion sensor connected to a magnetic pulse emitter. If Maya passed within 50 meters, it would create a localized electromagnetic distortion. Nothing harmful, just enough to temporarily disrupt her camouflage's chromatophores. "Now we wait," William said, settling into a natural blind he'd constructed from fallen branches and ferns. Scout lay beside him, perfectly still, the art of the ambush predator. Hour 8. Maya had covered significant ground, circling back twice to confuse any tracking attempts. She'd crossed 3 streams, climbed through rocky outcroppings, even spent an hour motionless in the canopy. Her training was flawless. She approached a clearing cautiously, sensory organs sweeping for threats. Nothing. The forest seemed peaceful, undisturbed. She stepped forward. The electromagnetic pulse was subtle, barely a flicker, but enough. For 3 seconds her camouflage stuttered, revealing patches of her natural violet coloration against the green background. 3 seconds was all William needed. He didn't shoot, didn't chase. He simply observed from his position 200 meters away through a primitive optical scope, not even electronic, just carved glass and metal. He noted her gait, the slight favoring of her left side when startled, the way her sensory stalks retracted when stressed. Then he melted back into the forest. Hour 16. Maya's confidence had eroded into unease. Twice now she'd found evidence of something, not footprints. The human was too skilled for that, but absence. A spot where morning dew hadn't formed. A branch bent at an unnatural angle. Small disturbances that screamed trap to her trained mind. She was being herded. The realization struck her like plasma fire. Every path she'd chosen, every route that seemed safe, they'd all led her in a gradually tightening spiral. She pulled up her tactical display, mapping her movements over the past 16 hours. The pattern was undeniable. Maya changed tactics immediately, climbing a massive tree and settling into absolute stillness. She would wait, force the human to make a mistake, to reveal himself through impatience. William, sitting against a tree 400 meters away, smiled slightly. Scout's head rested on his lap, the dogs breathing slow and meditative. They'd been motionless for 6 hours. Patience was the hunter's greatest weapon. Hour 37. Maya hadn't moved in 21 hours. Her Crick's physiology allowed for extended dormancy, slowing her metabolism to nearly undetectable levels. She was certain the human had lost her trail. Then she smelled smoke. Not nearby, perhaps a kilometer distant, but distinct. A campfire. The human was cooking. During a tactical exercise, the arrogance stunned her. Or was it bait? Her protein reserves were depleting. She hadn't expected a pursuit team competent enough to actually restrict her movement. The emergency rations in her kit would sustain her, but the smell of roasting meat triggered primal hunger responses. It was bait, obviously bait. She stayed in her tree. Hour 42. The smoke had stopped, but now she heard something else. Rhythmic tapping, metal on wood. Not constant, irregular patterns that drew the ear, that created curiosity. Sound traveled strangely in these forests, making distance impossible to judge. Maya's tactical training warred with her growing frustration. She was being psychologically manipulated, and she knew it, which made it even more infuriating. Hour 51. The tapping had stopped 12 hours ago. Her sensors detected nothing, but she could feel it, the certainty that she was being observed, not actively scanned, nothing technological, just watched. Hell. She descended from her tree with extreme caution, every movement calculated. She would break the spiral, head directly away from where she estimated the human's position to be. Scout's ears perked up. William's hand settled gently on her head, keeping her still. Through the gaps in their hide, constructed over the past 2 days while Maya remained motionless in her tree, he watched the Cricks begin to move. He'd learned her pattern now, the way she favored visual confirmation over sensor data, how she moved in predictable patterns when stressed, the rhythm of her scouting sweeps. He pulled out a simple device, a modified emergency beacon that would emit a brief, localized pulse mimicking a standard galactic peacekeeping distress signal. He'd placed 7 of them throughout the forest over the past 2 days, each in locations he'd predicted Maya might travel toward. As she moved into range of the 3rd beacon, he activated it remotely, using a simple radio frequency transmitter his grandfather would have recognized. The signal lasted 2 seconds, just long enough for Maya to make a choice. Hour 68. Maya was exhausted. Not physically, her species could operate for weeks without rest, but mentally. Every decision felt like a trap. Every path seemed deliberately left open. The human hadn't shown himself once, yet his presence saturated the entire environment. This wasn't hunting, this was being hunted. She understood now why humanity's admission to the galactic community had caused such controversy. They weren't advanced. They didn't have superior technology or evolved advantages, but they had spent 200,000 years as persistent predators on a world that constantly tried to kill them. They'd learned to think like prey to catch prey, to set traps that worked on psychology rather than physics, to wait with inhuman patience because patience was the only tool they'd had. The instructors had said, blend with nature. Humanity had taken that literally. They didn't blend with nature, they understood that they were nature. Predator and prey, hunter and hunted, all rolled into one adaptive, terrifying package. Hour 72, the simulation ended. Maya stood in the clearing where she'd started, her camouflage finally deactivated. She hadn't seen William once during the entire exercise. He emerged from the tree line with Scout at his side, looking exactly like he had 3 days ago, tired, slightly disheveled, utterly ordinary. "Good exercise," he said with a slight smile. "You did well. Textbook evasion techniques." "I failed," Maya stated flatly, her translator converting her clicks and whistles into galactic standard. "You survived," William corrected. "That's passing, though." He paused, scratching Scout's ears. "Your instructors taught you to blend with nature. That's good advice if nature is where you evolved. But humans, we learned something different." "What?" Maya asked despite herself. William's smile widened slightly. "We learned that nature isn't a place to blend into. It's a system to understand, to manipulate, to become part of. Every animal, every plant, every wind pattern, they're all tools, weapons, allies." He gestured at the forest around them. "Your species has better camouflage than we'll ever have, better sensors, better everything physically. But we spent millions of years with nothing but our brains and our stubbornness. So we learned to think like the forest itself." He tipped his hat to her. "See you in advanced training, Maya. You've got potential. You just need to stop thinking like a soldier and start thinking like a hunter." As William and Scout disappeared back into the forest, leaving absolutely no trace of their passage, Maya stood motionless, processing what she'd learned. The instructor said, "Blend with nature." Humans had taken that instruction and turned it into an art form that predated their civilization. They didn't just blend. They hunted, set traps, and disappeared. And now they were teaching the galaxy how. End